I haven't done this in a while.
Hey everybody, it is the ZD YouTube crew back again. Week 2 of. Wait, hold on a second. There might be a puzzle McKenna can solve here. I don't know. I don't know how you do this. Oh, yep. There we go. We got McKenna. We got Adriel. We got Corey and Migu. We're here to talk more about Tears of the Kingdom. We're on our second week of talking about this, and we're gonna stick today. We're gonna try to stick to the Rito quest that you're sent on. If you're following the main story, that is. That's the tricky part. We're gonna try not to spoil things, but obviously the game is so open-ended that you can go do whatever at whatever point. But we're going to try to keep it contained maybe to the areas or what have you as we go on. So just so everyone knows today, we're kind of only going to be talking about stuff in that region of the game and the quest you're sent on, the Rito regional phenomena area. So if you've played that, shouldn't get too spoilery. There's a few other things like, on the way there's like they start introducing things like the memories and stuff like that, but we're gonna probably hold off and go do a deeper dive into like the memories, the stories, and all the things you can do. We're gonna probably have their own video, so there shouldn't be too many spoilers here. But before we do that, we got to do a vibe check, and I wanted to get everyone's stats. They did this on the Zelda cast. Where they said, everyone, let's go around and say how many shrines you've done, how many light roots you've gotten, how many Korax you have, and maybe, I guess, how much of your battery or whatever that is you filled up. Adriel, what do you got?
All right. To start us off really high. Okay. I have, let's see here. I'll start with my battery. I have three full batteries and
Wow.
2/3 of another one.
Okay.
And I'm doing that because I really don't get it, and I want to have as much as possible so that I can try to get it, because I really don't get it. Okay.
Enough room to troubleshoot.
Yeah. And then shrines, I have 42, which doesn't seem right, but I feel like I've gotten 10, but it says I have 42. And as far as light roots, I have 32 Korok seeds.
Gosh, that explains the battery.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That's true. I spend all my time down there if I
Down low.
am not trying to like figure out what's going on in the actual story. And then I have 44 Korok seeds.
Okay. Wow. Yeah,
that's my
impressive.
vibe.
That's impressive.
When you said the battery was full, I was expecting that. And that's that's kind of a cool. I saw one of my friends said today, like, oh, it's cool, like, exploring caves in this game helps get you the light seeds to help explore the depths, which has a lot of bombs. So it's kind of got this, like, loop to it. But I was also thinking, when you're down low in the depths, it also, like, you're going to be getting stuff to increase those batteries, which I feel like is going to make exploring, like, the sky and getting up easier, because you'll, like, later game, you're going to be able to build some wild crafts to get around, I would imagine.
Totally.
Like, soon there will be, like, no limitations to traversal, like, by the end game, I would imagine.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's such a good point about the kind of how the different areas feed into each other in terms of resource allocation and what's useful where.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that. That is why I have so much battery, but also because I don't know what I'm doing. So I do want to be clear about that.
Corey, what about you? What's your stats?
My numbers aren't as impressive as Adriel's. I have for battery, I haven't even upgraded my battery at all.
Wow.
I just have the one battery cell, like the one 3-part battery cell, and that's all I've needed so far. I don't even know how
Yeah.
you upgrade it yet,
That's
but
fair.
that's all right. Shrines, I have 31. Light roots, I only have 5, which I guess makes sense if being down there makes you upgrade your battery. And then Korok seeds is the one I beat you on. I have 52 Korok seeds.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, Corey loves the Koroks, you know.
I do, of course. I see a
Yeah,
little
you
guy
have
and
one.
I'm like, I gotta help him.
I know. You have one in captivity right there.
Yeah. Captivity. This is my buddy.
Oh, McKenna just freed
This is
him.
my pal.
What about you, McKenna?
So I have 3 full and then 1/3 of a battery. I have 89 shrines,
Wow.
44
Dang.
light roots, and 72 Koroks.
Okay, okay.
Nah.
McKenna's crushing it. McKenna makes me look like I just picked up this game yesterday.
What's a Zelda?
Yeah,
What even is a Zelda?
yeah. McKenna has so much more knowledge on this game on me right now, and I constantly like, oh man, I don't know. I don't feel like I need to catch up actually, but sometimes I'm like, I can't wait to experience this too.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
um, I have 54 shrines, um, only 14 light roots, and I was like you, Corey, where I wasn't at first exploring down there, but I decided, I think it was actually, I've played a little bit. I did the Rito thing kind of early, ish. So after I did it, I was like, okay, I'll get a little bit more. So I've got up to 14, and so I've got 2 full batteries and 1/3 of one. But then, McKenna, you said you had 72 Koroks.
Yes.
I have 70. So I have
Dang.
like
I think
proportionally.
Koroks, man.
you've been doing more of the help, taking one Korok to its friend and getting 2.
Yes.
I haven't done very
More bang
many
for your
of
buck.
those.
You meet a lot of pathetic Koroks out there on the road.
They're
On
trying
their
to
back, like,
Poor
I
guy.
can't. I have my friends over there, but I can't.
I
they're like
honestly,
going for the emotional jugular. They're like this poor Korok in like the freezing cold is like, I need to reach my friend. It's like so sad.
Your patience wears a little thin after you've seen like a dozen of them, though.
It's true.
It's like, all right, buddy, get up.
for me it hasn't yet. I save every single one I meet. I was saying this before
I've passed a
recording.
few up, I promise you.
I've been, so that's the thing is I'm trying to take my time through the game, and kind of, I'm not like combing every area. Actually, the way I'm playing is I've been following kind of the roads and like mapping out the roads and seeing like, oh, what's different alongside the road. So we were talking about this, I'm running into Addison a lot, and I'm running into the Koroks a lot because I feel like, especially Addison, they put them alongside the road. So it's just a sad state of affairs out there in the wild. Just a bunch of helpless people. Not to mention all the people still getting beaten up by bokoblins left and right. I'm just riding around my horse, just helping everyone out, with their day-to-day lives.
Being
So
a
yeah,
good Samaritan.
The horseback crusader goo, helping put up signs and reunite Koroks.
I don't know. These are the type of puzzles that I know, like, just like Breath of the Wild, I will not get all the Korok seeds. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. And I probably won't do all the signs, though I might on accident. We'll see.
I've done a good amount of the signs too. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, gotta put a sign up.
I like you, you
Yeah.
said, Adriel, the building you were still not fully clicking with. I love the putting, like, I always build the most ridiculous thing around him. McKenna can attest to this,
Yeah.
right? Where he's like drops a sign and I just build all around him and I just start slapping things together and it typically works. And then other times where it doesn't, I try to brute force it and just like, what if I rotate this crazy monstrosity a different way?
Oh my god. Yeah, no, I mostly like I didn't get it at first. I was like, "Why do you need my help?" And he was like really sassy about it. And then I finally went back and then I put something up really beautifully because I thought it was going to stay there for the rest of the game. So I was like very careful. And then he's like, "Great. I'm so glad that's there. Let me like like
Let me
fix
put
it.
this up and then we'll take down your crap.
And I was like, oh, I spent so much time building that thing for you. And then you just take it down. I was like, I could have stood there and held it for you, man. Anyway.
I had one.
Anyway.
Actually, I got attached to one thing I built for him too because, I don't know, just it had wheels on it on the top. Just because I grabbed a board that had wheels, but I was like, this doesn't look half bad. So I flipped it over, put 2 more wheels on it, and attached it to my horse. And I was like, all right, battle cart. And then I had my horse going, and then I got near a Bakulan base and like ascended to the top of the cart, and I was like, I used it to make my
Cool.
first strike, but then it I don't know, it's made out of wood, so it didn't really last very long. It's pretty susceptible to the elements.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So yeah, we want to talk about though the Rito section of the game, and at Lookout Landing where you're kind of centered early on, they kind of point you in the direction of this one first, but it's similar to Breath of the Wild where you can go anywhere, but it seems to be an intended, or not intended, but a suggested order. If you keep going back, they keep kind of saying, hey, do this area next or whatever. So we're going to stick with that one. But one thing they do with not just the those quest regions, they do it with all the regions. I mean, this is a thing in Breath of the Wild, but I feel like it's even more so here, is you have characters all over kind of like talking about the situations of the different areas and how it affects different characters, so you're hearing about stuff going on elsewhere, but you get that with Rito Village. And McKenna, you were saying before we were recording, there's a big one like when you're on the way from this quest, when you get to, which stable was it?
The Tabantha Bridge stable.
Yeah, there's some guys. What's happening, right? They give you a little.
There's like a Rito talking to a Hylian, and they're trying to get supplies to Rito Village because they're all going hungry and can't stay warm. So I think maybe they had some supplies go missing or something.
Yeah.
Or go bad, and there's like a little thing for you to help them out, but that kind of sort of introduces the Rito Village problem.
The dilemma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's something too, like, this is actually, I feel like one of the, I mean, you could have done this in a totally new game, but like I feel like one of the benefits of this being a sequel is like you're hearing about all these places, having a real bad time, and I'm like, I want to see what's going on there. Like, are my friends okay?
Totally. Yeah. I didn't realize that returning to the same place would give like an inherent kind of emotional attachment to it already. So then when these places are all messed up, or things are just different, and you kind of have like an attachment to them, or they have an attachment to you. There are returning characters. You feel like kind of, I at least felt, indebted to these people and more invested in what was going on with them, even though I was returning to the same world. It didn't feel boring. It felt like an enhancement of the emotionality to me.
For sure. With this, to kind of help frame the conversation here, Corey, if it's okay with you, I know you kind of tried to corner the market on nooks, but
is there another Nook? I'm not.
Well, here's
familiar.
Actually, this is a groundbreaking new development in the Nook format. For this episode, we have 4 Nooks, 4 Nico's Nooks that we're going to drop on you.
All right, fine.
That's okay with you?
I'll allow it.
Okay, so we're gonna roll the clip of part 1 of Nico's Rito Nook.
What's up, everybody? I am here to talk about my time in the Rito Village portion of the regional phenomenon main quest in Tears of the Kingdom. Now, first things first, you get to Rito Village. The music? Oh, we already have the Rito Village music that we know and love from Breath of the Wild, but you add on the, like, creepy kind of like ethereal snow music where they're all trapped inside of this blizzard. Oh, the music is so good and it sets the tone for how creepy everything is about to get because things get weird. You meet Tulin, who is such a cute kid. I mean, he's so headstrong and he knows what he's doing, and I absolutely love him as a character. Um, I like him more than Rivali. I'll say that. I do like Rivali, but I think Tulin is cooler.
We were just talking about this too. The places all being, severely messed up. All the different regions you go to in this regional phenomenon. At least as far as I can tell, I've only been to 2 so far. But what it reminded me actually a lot of, and especially here because of the outcome of the dungeon, is it made me think of Majora's Mask. Just going.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Okay.
Very similar vibes.
I mean, yeah, I guess maybe that's not it's not a hot take or anything, but yeah, I like that aspect though. Whereas like I really felt like going there and like meeting the people and like seeing what's going on and like working with them. I really felt like, oh yeah, I'm kind of like working together with these guys who are kind of. It was cool to like, just in general. All the characters you meet and stuff are like trying to take care of business, and it felt like, I don't know, more involved than people just being like, hey Link, go take care of this for us,
Yeah. Something I particularly like about when you get here, and it is, Nico's totally right, it's got that like snowy, slightly spooky, like something's off. It's a little feels a little emptier, a little less lively than before. The soundtrack is like obviously like a wintry remix of the Rito Village theme, which kind of reminded me of Winters and like Snowman's theme from the Earthbound games.
Oh yeah,
It's got like that kind of vibe going. But something that I like that kind of lends into that you were just talking about is that a lot of the kids that we are familiar with have grown up and they're older now, and there's a lot of them walking around and trying to do stuff to help out the village. And I that's one thing I noticed. I was like, yo, where's all the adults? What are all you kids doing walking around in charge of stuff? But it's really nice because it's like, of course, if the adults are out, breaking their backs and risking their lives to try and get food and stuff like that, it makes sense that the kids would have to be like, all right, let's step our games up and help out around here.
Yeah, that was my initial feeling too, is like, where are the adults? But then you go on, you kind of do a quest alongside them, and that totally, like, yeah, I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of strange that I mean, it makes sense that the children have to like sort of take over, but it does also feel like I was like this could have gone a lot of different ways. I think that the reason maybe narratively that they chose this is because of what comes next, which is the song that the children are singing, and it's this children's like storybook song or whatever, and so and that comes into play in a little bit, and I think that would have been harder to get in there if the children weren't front and center in Rito Village.
Plus
the adults are all just singing a kid's song, and
right? Yeah, like this yeah, like they would have had to build it in there in like kind of a different way.
To give the adults some credit, they come back. Like there's some who are there. They're like, they were just out like scouting or whatever. I forgot what they were even doing. What were they doing, McKenna? what was
they're trying to get supplies. Well, Taba is there when we get there.
Taba's just
he's there. So like they got their champion or whatever watching them. Who is in the game.
They got their babysitter.
We were talking about that, like, oh, so he is in the game. People were like worried about Taba, like what happened to him. He's here, he's fine.
I think it's really cool that he's like the chief now. That's very fitting for him.
He deserves it. He earned it,
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the only adults there because he's like kind of has to hold it down, like even though all the kids are there. And then like McKenna said, they're all out like trying to get supplies because the snowstorm has like cut off the like the trading route or whatever, so they don't have any food. So it's like pretty dire. Like you get there and it's all messed up and they don't have any food and the grown-ups are gone. It's like a little spooky.
It's like they're you see the ponds like on the way up. They're all frozen, so they can't get to the fish that are right there. They don't even have a supply in town.
That makes sense.
Boy, did I love
you-
crunching on those ponds.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah,
is my
that's the best.
one of my favorite things. New mechanic of the game is crunching those
And
ponds.
It comes
That
into
is a
play
great
later
mechanic.
too,
Yeah,
which is
it's a
cool.
little
does.
Yeah.
foreshadowing.
Yep.
Like, oh,
So-
hey, you can do this. You can break through this ice.
There's a lot
So
of
did
good.
you all follow?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, did you all follow that path up from Lookout Landing, where like you follow the road, and I think it's like the tower, and then farther up you get to the Lucky Clover Gazette, and then
Oh,
right after
yes.
that it's Rito Village.
Yes, I followed that. Did you?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I have not been doing anything. Like I knew I had to go towards that area, but I went way too far north, so I went all the way up in Hebra, explored basically the whole Hebra region, got a super late memory that I definitely wasn't supposed to get that early, and then like
Oh.
worked my way all the way back, got to Rito Village first, and then Lucky Clover Gazette.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
That's-
Does it all
that's what
still
I've
make
been-
sense?
Yeah, because I heard like I already knew that I had to go there, and like I knew because you can hear people in even as early as Lookout Landing talking about like, oh, there's a cold snap coming from up in that area, and like the Rito are
Yeah.
having some trouble and stuff.
And there
yeah,
is
but
the
it's-
you are also drawn there because of the Lucky Clover Gazette quest, which is another one of those ones which will we'll probably cover more in its own section, but I have done a lot of that and it's a lot of fun. And I just like that. That's another nice little touch. I was trying to put that whole sentence into one word for some reason. But I like the little bit where there were people who worked at that stable who, had
Yep.
to leave it, or like the old owner is still there and they've kind of repurposed it into a fun side quest. They don't know they repurposed it into a fun side quest, but that's the greatest part about it.
Yeah.
They
They
kinda
seem
give
a
you-
little. Oh yeah, go.
Well, if you're gonna keep going on the Lucky Clover Gazette, I was just gonna talk about the pine cones.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Please
and-
go on
bunch
about the
of
pine
pine cones.
cones.
Okay,
There's a
so
bunch
there's a
of
guy. There's a guy sitting in front of the Lucky Clover Gazette with his little fire, and he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't throw Hylian pine cones on this. It'll be bad." And then you're like, "Well, of course I have to do it now."
Don't
So
tempt me,
you
sir.
throw a pine cone on the fire, and it makes it just go crazy. There's a huge gust of wind, and you're like, "That's Rivali's Gale."
Exactly. Yes.
Pine cone.
Yep.
I was gonna say earlier, you were talking about like the lead up and the different little things they teach you. They do a good job in this game too. This is another more broad topic, and we can do a shrines video and stuff too. But with some of those things and the shrines, they do a good job of introducing. I just feel like there's so many more types of mechanics at play because of the combination and all the different Zonai devices and stuff like that. But I feel like they do a good job in like the lead ups to these areas or whatever, like basically giving you all the tools you need. Like, and I feel like so far I haven't really had a shrine yet where I've been like, I've done this, like they've all felt like unique, and I don't know. But they like this stuff prepares you for the dungeon, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I have had a couple shrines where I was like, I gotta get out of here. I can't do it. Can't do it.
Really?
I gotta get
Yes.
out of here.
Screw it. Okay. I feel like there's always been a way to like get past it. Like cheese it if I can't figure out what they mean for me to do.
Yeah.
Usually with what's the one? The rewind or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one that was like my white whale, and I think that I've figured out the mechanics enough now that I can go back and try to like just shoehorn my way in there, I think.
Adriel's having nightmares about this one shrine. Like, I gotta get back in there.
Well, shrine
I've done-
guides are going up on the ZD YouTube right now.
Sweet.
Those are our bread and butter. So if you're stuck on any, refer to the guides.
I've done
Yeah, I
pretty
will
good
have
on
to.
I've done pretty good on mine so far. I've done considerably less than the rest of you, but like the one that usually the main part is like it'll take me a little bit to figure out, and then I can do it or I get it right away. But it's like the additional. I'm always hunting for that additional side treasure chest that's in each one that requires like a
Sure.
little extra puzzle, and that's the one that I'm like, all right, how do I do this?
Hmm.
I remembered like there's been a couple where like I don't initially get how like the Zonai device they're introducing works, like because McKenna, you saw a couple and you gave me some good hints, but there was one where like I it's like I got past like the first part of certain ones the wrong way, so then I was like set up to not understand the next
Set up to fail.
setup of the puzzle because I don't get
Mm-hmm.
how it works. So I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah.
They do try to give you like a very simple version of it. Like it's
Yes.
usually in
Yeah.
section. It's like maybe about an average of like three puzzles that get more complex as you go, and it, especially if it's introducing a device, it'll just give you something where you have to activate it and you're like, okay, I know what I have to do here. And then the next one, it's like, okay, we got to do something a little more advanced. And then the next one, you're like, oh, what do I do here? There's a few like moving parts. I got to think about this.
Hmm.
I also had
I
to get
agree though,
used
and
to
that's like
I had to get used to how to like
oh sorry.
activate certain ones too. Like I was thinking of like there's like a spring or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, you have
Yeah.
to like hit it with something. I was like trying to jump. I'm like, what? How does this go? It's like, oh, you
That's how you do it. I still didn't figure it out. I was trying to
Yeah.
jump on it, and I was like, guess I'm
Any-
never using springs.
basically any Zonai
Gotta hit
device,
everything.
any
Smack it.
Zonai device you got to whack, or like if it's got the
Or put it on your
steering wheel
shield
thing.
or a weapon.
Yeah, if your shield. So that's the other thing is we were talking about learning Rivali's Gale. There's so many ways to do Rivali's Gale in this without, having it.
Yeah.
Like they teach you the pine cone thing, which is a bit like there's multiple steps, but then I don't know if it's this section or later, but one of the Zonai devices is those rockets, and boy, oh man, I'm always running out though because I'm constantly putting them
Yeah.
on my shield and just like anywhere I need
Blasting
to
off.
go.
So
You can-
cool.
Another thing is that's fantastic is that people have been talking about lately is that ability in the Zelda cartoon where he shield bounces on a bomb. That's a real thing now.
Yep.
You can fuse a bomb or like a blast barrel to your shield and do shield surfing, and it does that. It bounces you super high up.
Whoa, did not know
Yeah.
that. Gotta try it. Gotta write
And that's
it
what-
down.
And that's what like we were talking about this in our first impressions video, but like that sense of there's so much at my disposal, I can solve anything any way that I want. It's like that times 10 now. It's like actually so many shrines you can just jerry rig your own way to get around things just with what you have at your disposal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there was a lot of things we purported over on Virtual Theater that the Legend of Zelda cartoon introduced, and particularly Breath of the Wild incorporated. And here's just another thing: they're always going back to that well
Yeah.
of the geniuses
They're
who
all-
wrote.
Always
Zelda
stealing
cartoon.
from the Zelda cartoon.
Never getting
Typical
any
Nintendo.
credit.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, what do you think about Nico's proposition that Tulin is better than Rivali? Maybe is it even
Jury's
worth
still
comparing?
out for me.
Can we compare
Rivali-
these two
They're
kings?
very different.
Rivali is like my favorite champion, but like to be fair, unless there's probably more of Tulin in the game to come,
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Well, he says
But-
when you beat it, he's like, "Come back here later," which I think is
Yeah.
awesome too. That's jumping ahead a little bit, but I love like this. This is a game where I feel compelled to like go back and see what's
To go
different.
back.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Taba says like a similar. He's like, and don't be a stranger. And I'm like, yeah, you know me. We were buddies.
We're homies.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Rivali's really cool. Rivali just had, to be fair, Rivali's just had more screen time and more development, and especially with the Champions Ballad, like a little bit more detail under the surface, which like Tulin's cool. Tulin's very cute. I like Tulin a lot too, especially more than in Age of Calamity.
Okay, for sure.
I don't like him in Age of Calamity. Sorry.
Oh.
It's kind of just a little thing in that.
Yeah, he's kind of just a little pipsqueak, and he doesn't shut up.
Well, I have some thoughts about why I really like Tulin in comparison, but I want to well, what do you guys think? What do you think about the Tulin v Rivali? I know Corey, you kind of put your 2 cents in, but
Well, I just think jury's still out.
okay, McKenna,
I think they're
they're
I mean, I
different.
didn't really think too much about those two. I thought more of the like Taba versus Tulin comparison, but
True.
like with
Yeah.
Rivali, they're kind of the opposite. Like Rivali resents Link, and you first see Tulin, and he's someone who looks up to you. He's very excited to see you. He thinks you're
He's
so
charming.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes, he's very charming.
You shake his hand.
Yeah.
His hand is huge.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
But he also has that he's a little cocky. Like he's like, "Oh,
He's
I
a
can do
talented
this."
youth.
Yeah, and he knows it. And he thinks he's ready to go out on his own and do stuff, but he kind of realizes, "Okay, maybe I need some help sometimes."
Yeah. And you become, partners.
So I
which
think
is
I think
cool.
in that way they kind of both have this, okay, you know, we're good at what we do, but sometimes we need some extra help.
Yeah, that's a
That's true.
good common theme between. It seems like that's sort of all of the Rito, or at least the three that we have dealt with in these games: Rivali, Teba, and Tulin. All three of them kind of have that like too proud to like they think they can do it on their own, and then you have to go and help them. All three of them have that
Yeah.
same character flaw.
Before
That
we
is something that I want to add about
Okay.
Tulin versus Taba, because I wasn't really thinking about them compared to each other, but they do serve the same function pretty much. There's like Taba in Breath of the Wild and Tulin in this game. I definitely prefer Tulin for that sort of like buddy, almost sidekick co-op like working together thing, because Taba just felt a little bit more detached, kind of.
yes.
Like he was kind of being forced into it, which is why I kind of prefer Taba in this role as just an NPC as the chief, because it's like you get to see him in a little bit more of a role that befits his seriousness, you know?
I like having homies. Someone mentioned that. It's cool. Like, it's going back and running. You're running into a lot of people who know you or they know about the story of Link. And I saw some people talking about like, oh, it's weird. Like, not everyone recognizes him, but I actually think for me, it's always felt very appropriate. Like I'm very much immersed in like this world, and like this version of Link really fits to me. I was thinking about sort of like, if you think of I mean, I guess he might be like a war hero or something, but I think think of a lot of like famous generals, like, some of them could probably get away with like not being recognized by every single person on the freaking planet, but a lot of people know Link. And I don't know, I just really like this like world. It feels, maybe it's cheating because it's going on Breath of the Wild, but it does feel a little bit like, lived in, more familiar.
It does, yeah. I
Yeah,
also think
yeah.
it's funny that like a lot of people do recognize Link and are just like, "Oh man, hey Link, what's up?" And it's just like, you didn't exist before. I have no clue who you are, man. I've never seen you in my life.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do
a
like
few
that
years
there's
passed.
this yeah. There's like this element of like he's like the the crazy hero. Like everyone's like, here he goes again. We can call the swordsman. And it like kind of to me in my head canon, it's like I show up wearing like the craziest thing, and they're like, hey, this guy can help. Like he'll do whatever you want.
He's trustworthy.
Yeah, crazy old Link.
I'm usually
So I
trying
kind
to
of like
dress
Is there a
for.
flower on the tip of his sword?
Yeah.
I'm
Wearing
trying
a
to
giant
dress.
Toon Link head.
Yeah.
Typically, I'm dressing for the job. Like if I'm like going to Rito Village, I'm like I want to fit in. So I put on my Rito garb or whatever.
Okay.
So I want the people to know they can trust me still.
Okay. That's a different approach than me.
Yeah.
You really
I wanna-
freak them out.
I definitely want to talk about that co-op part, but right before it though, I like this little section where they're like, where Tulin's like, "Hey, meet me up here," and you kind of go on this little. This is where you meet more of the Rito who are kind of like out searching for whatever. They're like looking for supplies or they're scouting or whatever, and you have kind of this like, you. This really shows off like the cave systems, I think, which is really cool. Like, I love like exploring through the caves to like reach to the top of the next section where you meet up with Tulin. I don't know. Have you guys done much like cave exploration?
I've done a lot of spelunking,
Yeah. Okay.
if you
Cool.
will. I've been in caves a lot of the time. Not so much the depths, but like the surface caves. I've been through a bunch of them, and that's actually it's funny that you mentioned that lead up because like you have the cutscene in Rito Village. Tulin flies off, and then the next you follow like some fire spots, which eventually lead you into the caves. And they're like, oh yeah, Tulin went through here, and there are a couple other adults in here. You go through the caves; they're really cool. You see the adults, and the last one's like, yeah, once you exit this, you got to look for the lone tree or whatever. And I don't know if I missed anything, but it kind of felt like I did because after I got out, I totally didn't go wherever they were pointing me to. I like went around and did a bunch of other stuff and then flew back in from the backside and killed an Aracuda, and it randomly activated a cutscene where Tulin was like, "Oh, hey, thanks. That was my bow." And
Yes.
I was like, "Oh,
This is
That's
a
cool.
theme for Corey's playthrough. It's going through the back entrance.
I don't like doing what they tell me to do."
Such a
Yeah, I
bad
think
boy.
yeah,
we probably all navigated it differently because I watched Goo navigate it and I was like, I missed these other adults in the cave. Like, I completely missed them. I just
That's
explored a bunch and eventually popped up and was like, oh, there's like a little hill up here. What's up here? And I was like, oh, it's Tulin. He's up here.
Fancy seeing you here.
I found you.
Yeah, no, I'm like immersed in the game world. I'm like in my head I'm like role playing everything. I'm like, oh, I know like
Nice.
some of it's not that important, but I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go see here, like go talk to this person. I don't know if this will last for however many hours the game is, but I'm like, I know that there's so many things you could just like bypass. Like you probably do not have to go through those caves at all, but I just feel I'm like I want to see what's going on there. Like what are they doing?
That's really cool.
Yeah, like as opposed to like I remember a lot more in Breath of the Wild just going like what's the nearest shrine or tower and like warping to it and then like flying over there, which is going to be way easier to do in this game, but I'm like initially uncovering the world, I'm like I really want to get down and like like I said, like kind of follow at least on these quests, kind of follow like where they're pointing me and see what's going on. I don't know why I'm captivated.
No, I think it's a testament to, for me, I feel similarly. I think that it's a testament to this. The story feels more urgent. Whereas Breath of the Wild, I was like, well, it's been 100 years. She's, holding him off.
She's holding
Like
the
there's
You
like,
can wait
there's,
a little bit.
yeah, and there's not really a sense of mystery. You're like, all right, right away, they're like 4 divine beasts. You got to go activate them. Zelda's been in there for 100 years. Go for it, whatever. Whereas this game, there's like a sense of like cause and effect and urgency that I feel more acutely. I think that I want to stick more to the main quest, and then go back and like do 8,000 side quests. But I think that for me at least, there's that sense of like I do feel more like I'm role playing, or I'm trying to think like, okay, well, what's more important now? What should I do
Mm-hmm.
next? Whereas I was not doing that in Breath of the Wild. I was like, every Korok, the what's under this rock, Um, although now I'm still sort of doing that, but only with the Koroks that are really sad.
Yeah.
Only the really helpless ones.
Yeah.
Not going out of my way to find any under a rock or whatever.
No, I just need to help the ones that
Can
will
stay there.
haunt me.
Yeah, or I need my friend.
That
Like,
poor Korok is still over there waiting.
Yeah.
get him out of my sight. So you get up there, and as Corey said, you got to get his bow back from the Aracuda. But that's where we're gonna drop in. We got we got Nook number 2 here. Take it away, Nico.
You discover that the kids are singing this song about the ark that came down and saved the village in the past, and you get to go up into the storm cloud with Tulin, and see these sky ships, these arcs that are made of stone that you get to bounce off of. That mechanic was so much fun to use it. That with Ascend, and then Tulin's ability of putting the gust forward. The movement of getting up into the Wind Temple was so much fun.
This is the section where, when I wasn't thinking of the characters' comparisons as much as like their personalities and like their actual character, because they are different. But I was sort of thinking about how they implement them into the game, and so far I feel like I like this a lot more, where like they feel like they're part of, you're navigating like the world with them, and they're like helping you oh, I'm sorry, I bumped my mic. I got too excited thinking about this.
Yeah.
Slow down, bro.
As opposed to like, it's fun. Actually, I think it's really cool in Breath of the Wild that you kind of have to do like a little boss fight basically before entering each dungeon, but it feels like more like, yeah, we kind of like created this little mini game for you, whereas like this section feels more like they enhanced like the game, the gameplay you're doing. It ties more into the gameplay of the game overall, especially because they're kind of setting you up to eventually keep this power, which I think is really cool. I don't know if what did you guys think compared to like, say, the section where you're flying around with Teba to get into Va Meadow or whatever?
Well, I think of the 4 in Breath of the Wild, Teba feels like the most hands off. He flies you up there, and then he's kind of flying around, supposedly distracting the divine beast. And
Not really.
Supposedly.
And yeah, I don't know if he's really doing that, but the other ones you feel more like they're really helping you out. This one, not so much, but Tulin feels very helpful. And I think this is probably a really good first one, because I think his ability really helps you with navigating the sky, which you probably want to do a lot in this game. And it helps you, I think, get used to navigating the sky and maybe some of the things that are farther apart, and trying to figure out, how do I get from this sky island to this sky island? Yeah.
It definitely like gets you into like the idea of like, oh, I can actually make that distance if I go for it. And just the movement, I feel like the movement in this game, I mean, it's on along with Breath of the Wild, like, just like I said, taking that and making the sections more about the movement, and the gameplay, which already feels so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and when I saw like all those little tiny ships around the big ship, ooh, I loved that. Plus, I thought that I was gonna have to like put some fans on them and do something crazy,
Right.
and then I get up there and it's just like trampoline city. I was like, this is what I came here for. This is worth the $70. I loved that you were able to. It was because nothing about ships means trampoline, right? So like I at least was there's not expecting.
They're not synonymous in
Flying
your head.
trampoline ships.
You don't think ships and trampoline?
Was that not part of the ancient song they had to learn? Did they mention
Jumping
that
on
the
the
ships are
ship.
bouncy?
The flying ships and the trampolines.
Yeah, I really thought like I was gonna have to fight the different ships, or I'd have to like there would be monsters on them, and I'd have to take them out, or I'd have to do something more of like a puzzle. And this was like cool, like Mario platforming, which was super fun and really unexpected. I got in like an awesome flow, and I didn't fall, I didn't die, which was great because I feel like there are parts of this game where I really just like can't, I can't. I'm not strong enough yet. But this part felt really like it felt doable and super super fun to control.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of the differences between Teba and Tulin in these sections, like I completely agree. I would rather have Tulin with me next to me, even if I'm not using his ability that much. It's just nicer to have him coming along with you as opposed to like all four of the new champions in Breath of the Wild. They're all cool. They all have their sweet abilities, but every single one of them feels like they're programmed and scripted to have these abilities just for this one gameplay segment at this one time where you need to enter the Divine Beast. And then afterwards, it's like, all right, cool. I'm glad I can help you out. See ya. But Tulin comes with you, and he ascends with you, and he goes into the dungeon with you. And his ability is, I think it's cool. It's kind of funny that it's like it's just Rivali's Gale, but this way. But in a way, it's almost maybe it's just because of recency bias and it feels new and it's fun to me, but like it almost feels more satisfying because it's like when you anytime you're paragliding from point A to point B, you start going and you're just going and going and you're like, I hope I get there. I hope I get there. I hope I'm high enough. I hope I did it. But like at this point you can start doing it and then just be like, bam, I'm going.
Yeah, and his little sound effect where he's like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes you
cute.
get two in. Also, you can get two in sometimes if you get a long paraglide, and you're like, oh yeah, two
Yeah.
gusts.
Yeah, but it feels really satisfying in these, especially in a game that has so many, like it relies on you building stuff and coming up with solutions to cross big gaps, and this helps just be like, you see that one way over there? No, you can just get to it now. And this ascent up towards the dungeon, like you see the storm cloud up above, and like you're bouncing on the trampolines and going across, and the music starts getting more dire and more serious. It's just so atmospheric. It feels awesome, like leading up because you don't really know. You just see a silhouette in the storm cloud of like what looks to be a giant ship, and you could probably guess what's up there, but you don't really know. And it's like, oh, we can't get in through the side. You have to go so high up, bouncing on these trampolines that you dive down through the top, and it's like all the while there's dire piano music and it's getting scary and it feels great.
Such an amazing, yeah, entrance into, I guess, our first dungeon, and for us, Nook number 3.
I loved just being able to have like the freedom of movement, and the actual puzzles up there were fairly easy. They definitely mean for this to be your first main area, your first dungeon. And so it wasn't that difficult, but it was a great time. It felt way more like a pure dungeon quest than anything in Breath of the Wild did. You still kind of get a feel once you're in the Wind Temple. It's similar to the way that the Divine Beasts are structured, in that you have to go to specific sections, activate something, and then the big boss comes out at the end. That just seems to like work for the open world aspect with Zelda, which I think is fine because this feels way more like a dungeon than any of the Divine Beasts did. Lots of really fun puzzles on the actual Wind Temple too. Some of them were difficult, took me a little bit of time.
When I first got on to, so it's the Stormwind Arc, right? Or aka the Wind Temple. Got another Wind
Yeah.
Temple back.
That feels very Zelda. The Wind Temple, the Stormwind Arc.
Yeah, when I
I'm good
saw
with
that
it.
it was called the Wind Temple, I was like,
Yeah.
and we're
Oh yeah.
back.
Yep.
And as Nico said, like it, and I think most people kind of agree. It has a similar structure to the Divine Beasts, and so after playing it, I haven't played any other ones, but I kind of got this sense of like, okay, they're gonna kind of do this thing again, but they're gonna make it feel a little bit more like a Zelda dungeon. They're gonna have a little bit more diversity in like what the areas are, I'm guessing. So that was nice. But I actually also found, even though it had the same just open ended 5 point get the 5 point structure as the Divine Beast, that because it became even more so about, again, the movement, kind of trying to figure out like, okay, this one's here, like you still kind of gotta find the spots and navigate around, or sometimes you can see through an area. So it becomes, again, more about these tools that you're using more often, and not this weird like the Divine Beasts are okay, but like most of the puzzles are like, okay, let's pause it and kind of mess with the where the trunk is or whatever. Whereas I felt still more like I'm exploring a dungeon, if that makes sense. Personally, I feel like there's still a lot they could do with this format. Like it's, I don't know. I'm not someone who's like they hardcore need to go back to traditional dungeons as well, because I think with some, actually, even though in like the last one before Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword, we did get some all timers. Like, I do think that there were some dungeons in some of the games that became a little formulaic, a bit more predictable. So I feel like I'm still open to the idea of like them shaking up the dungeons or whatever. But I still feel like there's a little bit more, and maybe this is just the first one, so maybe it's a bit simple. But I play it and I'm still thinking like, I feel like I still want more from this aspect of it. But I do think it was an improvement overall from Breath of the Wild. What do you guys think?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, I think we've talked about this in several videos about like what our hopes for dungeons moving forward would be, and I think the consensus was kind of like take what worked from the Divine Beasts, the awesome puzzle design, the cool interactive elements and being able to solve things in multiple ways, all that cool stuff, and just make it feel more like a traditional Zelda dungeon in the way that it's more unique. Maybe it's the exploration is different as opposed to just being an open area where you can get to anything all at once. And I think this is definitely a really good step towards that, because you can tell that's kind of what they're doing. It's like now it's not just a generic uh Sheikah technology everywhere, kind of like brown color palette, whatever. They took the care to make it the Wind Temple, the Stormwind Arc. They incorporated all that stuff. There's icicles everywhere. It's somewhat themed. It's got its own cool theme, and like that's great and all. But I kind of agree. As I was playing through it, I started at first after I did the first couple terminals, and I got the sense that it's like, okay, it's structured very similarly to a Divine Beast. I kind of got a little upset because I was like, or not upset, but I started feeling let down because I was like, to be honest, of the two that I've done so far, I feel like I haven't had to solve any puzzles. I just got there. Whereas at least in Divine Beasts, it's like the dungeon itself is your dungeon item. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're using to constantly solve puzzles to get to these places. Whereas I started getting to these places and feeling like I didn't do that much. But that kind of did go away, as there are several, each little terminal kind of has its own puzzle to get to it, which very creatively use your abilities. Like you have to use Ultra Hand and like fuse an icicle to a lever to get it to open a door, which I was like, that's really cool. But I did have a similar feeling of like I kind of just want more. I just want more of that. I want it to be a little bit more jam packed, and a little bit more. Like that's exactly what I want. That stuff of okay, use the abilities you have now in creative ways to solve these puzzles. It just didn't feel like there were a ton of those puzzles. And one example is like there are I think 3 cannons on the ship around the ship that are like shooting cannonballs at you. And you can if you use your recall ability, you can send it right back at them and blow the cannon up. And I was thinking like, "Oh, cool, that's going to like open up a door or something." And like it never really did. It always
I
just
had the
left an empty
same
spot.
I had the same exact I was like, "I did
Yeah.
it, finally!" Like, I got blown up a couple
Yeah.
times, and I was like, "Oh, it'll all be worth it when I see what's under this cannon."
Yeah,
Nope.
no, it's just it's an empty circle. But
Yeah.
they and I'm hoping that it's just cuz this is like it's meant to be kind of like the intro dungeon and they're kind of showing you like okay, hey, here this is what it's going to be like and you have to use your abilities in this way. Maybe they wanted this one to feel a little bit more simple
Maybe
or
more
a little
familiar
less.
too with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't
Cuz
know.
it
I
does
haven't played
feel
any other dungeons, so
yeah, neither have I.
Me
And
neither.
it does feel like a divine beast.
McKenna
McKenna
has.
has. McKenna has.
Okay, so I
McKenna's
have
got the answers
played
over there.
some other dungeons, and
But
this one definitely felt the simplest
Okay.
of
okay.
the dungeons I played. This one, to me, very much felt like a tutorial dungeon in a lot of ways, and like it focuses a lot on air movement, which is like the new thing in this game. It kind of works to test how well you're moving around in the air and navigating this ship. Because I totally ignored the cannons. I didn't even think to try to destroy them.
I don't think I did either. Yeah.
I saw
I was just
Cannonball. I
like,
was like, I'm sending it back at you,
Me
buddy.
too.
I think I kind of explored inside, and I was like, all right, I can't get to these places from inside. So I was looking at the map, and I was like, can I go outside and just like fly in? And I thought that was fun, just going around it,
Yeah.
and which is something kind of, or you sort of go around the divine beast, but you're kind of more restricted, I think. Like you can climb a lot more on these. You can't use
Yes.
recall too much because the ceilings are really high, but
That's the thing that got me
That's
too, because I was thinking like, okay, I can see why maybe the 5 open structure works because it's like kind of hard to limit. You don't want to limit people in these, but I do see like, okay, you can't ascend here or whatever. So like, they could design these to where like you can't break them. I'm not saying they should make them all like have their own strict structures or whatever, but I feel like they could introduce things. I especially was feeling that way because there's parts where I like you open a door and I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be like maybe this is a puzzle where I gotta come through this door later, but instead it's just like a quicker way out. Or like there's a part
yeah.
where you like get a
Yep.
gear going and I'm like, oh, is this gonna control something in the dungeon? It controls the door. You gotta get through to blow the turbine.
Push
I'm like,
open the
okay,
door.
so I was
Yeah.
hoping for a little bit I don't mind the openness. I just feel like maybe there could be more of a puzzle box element to
Yeah.
the dungeon,
Exactly.
Yeah, I
that's-
agree.
Kind of like actually I would say it's not exactly the same thing, but I think Va Naboris kind of had that where it's like you could solve in a lot of ways, but it was tricky like to actually figure out how the dungeon worked in certain ways and getting the certain things from one part of the dungeon to the other, like where you had those like electric balls or whatever. So, but like
Yeah.
like I said, that's like the hardest dungeon in that game. So maybe in this game it'll develop. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that this was the simplest. But like I had a similar thing with Ascend where that's one of the things where like I think some people when they saw Ascend were like, "Oh, that ability's not going to be that crazy or anything." But my mind immediately went to like the different types of ways that could be implemented in a dungeon because like that's something that Gooey, I know both of us really like since we've gone through the dungeon dive. It's like when a Zelda dungeon makes you look at your map and be like, I need to get there. How do I get there? I feel like this formula would work perfect for a room that you can literally only get to from below through ascend.
You have to figure out
And
how to get there.
I was thinking that there was one room, and I do appreciate that this dungeon also had like a bunch of like kind of optional rooms or optional treasure chests and stuff, because that's always nice to have that
Yeah,
in
that's cool.
dungeons. But and there was one room where I couldn't quite get to, and I was like, oh, I got to use ascend, I got to get below it, but it wasn't. I had to do
I had that same
something else
thought.
pretty much.
Though I will
Yeah.
say, I to give the dungeon some credit, I did find myself sometimes checking the map to be like, wait, where's this one? Like, you know, it's more of like to figure out one puzzle, but you know, I was looking at the map. I like that. I like looking at the map.
I do
Yeah, it
also
was.
like that.
I was just gonna say about the map. I thought it was sort of strange that there's this whole like to do about getting to the map towers, and then there's like the robots that grab you, and then you put the harness on, and then you have to fly up, and then there's like this whole cutscene about him surveying with the parapet, and then it's just like, oh, you have the map
Yeah,
for the Stormwind
do
arc. I
you?
thought that was so strange.
It's not like the Divine Beast where you like activate it or anything.
No, you just
Yeah.
have it. I thought that was so strange. I only thought it was weird because in the Divine Beast you had to find the map, and because they made such a big deal about how Link mechanically is like getting the map of the area with the
Mm-hmm.
Purapad. And so I thought that was like sort of strange. But I like
That is
having the
weird.
map. I'm not complaining.
There's one
Yeah.
really memorable terminal thing you do here too, where you're diving down through the lasers. Super cool.
Yeah,
Super fun.
that's
Mm,
very cool.
yeah, that was
I
awesome.
also
Love
I appreciate
diving.
that they make you use Tulin for it's like it's a wind turbine that you have to activate with
Yes.
Tulin's
Yeah.
ability. So
I'm
it's like
guessing
he's
that's
actually
gonna
helping you.
be all the dungeons are
Yeah.
probably gonna be like that. I would imagine.
Yeah, that's neat.
Throwback to Wind Waker.
Yes, there's
Little partner stuff
well
going on.
Yeah,
there's a couple
heck
of
yeah.
times in this. There's we'll talk about it in later videos, but there's a couple times in this where I'm like, I don't think I've really. Well, there's some other games, but it makes me think of Wind Waker at times, and it furthers my theory about Wind Waker being like super influential in ways people don't even think about.
That's what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying all along.
You can definitely.
Gory's
I
been
feel like with
reaching.
this game, you can feel a lot of earlier Zelda influence.
Mm-hmm. You
Yeah.
mentioned you were playing some of the music too. This dungeon, McKenna. We were listening to someone combined all the different versions when you unlock the terminal, and it's super good.
It's like it's like
Yeah.
the Divine Beasts where you activate one, terminal or when this wind turbine, and the music changes and it just keeps kind of growing and becoming more intense, and it's so I love how they do that in these dungeons. And
Yeah,
there's definitely I guess Breath of the Wild did this, but there's references to earlier games, even just references back to Breath of the Wild. Like you can hear Va Meadow music, Rivali music. I think, well, this isn't from a previous game, but at the beginning of the dungeon, you can hear the song that the Rito children are singing when you come into Rito Village.
Oh
cool.
yeah, part of the legend.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you caught all those things. I didn't at all. But I was like, the music is awesome. This is so cool, but
Yeah.
had no idea why. So that's so cool to hear.
So you get all the build up, the lead up. Are you ready? You guys ready for Nook number 4?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Then you get to the boss, Caldera. Oh, mama. I knew that this boss was going to be cool. We kind of got a glimpse of it in the trailers, but let me tell you, this boss fight is so much fun. The way you get to dive through him, and it's epic, and it's cool. It's a little tough, and overall it was like exactly what I would have wanted out of a dungeon in this new open world Breath of the Wild style. But you kind of bring in the classic Zelda, give me a real dungeon with a cool, unique boss. Oh, I loved it. Everything about it. And then you get to see a beautiful cutscene about the past Rito champion. I think it was really cool. Overall, I'm having a blast.
How about that boss fight?
It says
Ooh-wee.
we're talking about music. That music was off the chain, y'all. It was so good. I was like so amped, and I know that like boss music is awesome and it is often off the chain, but this like the remakes of the of Rito Village, just like oh you gotta save them. It like made me think of them
Yeah.
and like you have to save these people. They're like the plight of the Rito. Oh, it was awesome. So just to
I mean,
start with the music.
what do you expect? It's Colgera. It's inspired by Mulgera, who
Awesome.
also
Right?
Yes.
has a slapper of a battle theme.
True.
um, this actually reminded me. Maybe it's just because Corey, I've got Wind Waker on the brain. Actually, I haven't, but it made me think of a Wind Waker fight in that it's. I did find that it was super super tough, but the mechanics and the movement. There's a lot of Wind Waker bosses like are like that for me, where it's like they're not hard, but like they're so fun and they keep you moving and like
Yep.
on your toes a little bit, like I feel like yeah, if you're just kind of standing there trying to blast it, you're not gonna be successful, but you're up there, you're flying around, you're using that technique you were taught and dodging and diving down. I don't know how you took it out, but I was diving into it, but I was seeing like you could just shoot it or
Yeah.
like blow it up or whatever, but I
Oh,
was
you
like,
dove like you dove into it like face first.
yeah. What did you do? How did you take out its weak points?
It was mostly with
Bow.
a bow and arrow. And then
I
and
can.
then I jumped on it with the like I was like it was a little pond. I
Oh
jumped
yeah.
on it. I
I
didn't
don't.
think
I mean, you could jump
to
on it. You
nosedive
can on
into
it.
it.
Yeah, I
Wait,
don't
what did
think
you
you had to
nosedive into?
use a weapon in this boss fight. Like you could just dive
Yeah.
through its things. Not
Yep.
no weapon
That's
usage. You could beat it.
So what
I
I
didn't
would
know that
do
at
is
all.
it would shoot its spikes out, and I would dodge them, and or the tornadoes, and I
Yep.
usually wouldn't dodge those. I would just take the hit or whatever. But then it's exposed for a minute till it regrows them, and while it's exposed, you can dive through that hole. And I thought of it just because it
Wow.
is like
So
it's like a
cool.
hollow hole. I'm like that's meant to be dove
Hmm.
through.
That's
or
wild.
whatever.
I think I started it. I saw that there were like the breakable rocks, so I was like, oh, let's like bomb arrow it. And then I saw the ice, and I was like, wait a second. Can I
Wow.
just go through it? And the first time I did it, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I could do that. And
This is
Dang.
then
crazy. I didn't
I don't
even.
think
I
I
didn't. None
used
of
the
these
arrows
things.
after that because it just like starts shooting them at you, and I was like, all right, we don't need a weapon the rest of this.
None of these
Oh.
things occurred to me at all. When it was floating around, I'd basically be above it, dive down to below it, and then like look up and do bullet time shooting arrows at all the weak points.
That's what I did
Like
too.
that's what
And
I
a
did the
few
whole
times
time.
from the top,
It's
but
probably way
that's
more effective. I feel like.
I didn't even realize you could see them from the top. I was always going to the bottom and like going up. But
mm,
I to what you were saying, Gooey, it did feel I did feel that sense of like you got to be on your toes. Probably because you're in the air, so you do have to constantly worry about like where you're going. But I was playing this while I was in bed playing in handheld mode and like I had the gyro on, so I was trying to turn and be like, "No, I got to get it." No, no.
It's also like anything in
But
this
yeah.
game too, whereas like I had a bunch of hearts and stuff, so I was I could. There's probably people who would get to this point and get one shotted by the tornadoes or whatever. So I'm sure
yeah.
it could be a pretty hard boss, depending on when
I
you
don't
tackle
know.
it.
I don't know how many times I even got hit by this boss, to be honest. I definitely didn't get hit by any of the tornadoes.
Me neither,
This
yeah.
did feel pretty easy, but also very fun, like a Wind Waker boss.
For sure.
I really loved the design of the boss being like this weird snake that had three open holes in it. It made it feel like really skeletal, ghostly, bizarre, like where are its organs? It doesn't need them. It doesn't have them. I just thought I loved like going through a like seeing through and going through a boss. So cool, so cool.
Yeah,
And
it's
its
wild.
scary face, mean mugging you, and it
Mean
comes up.
mugging.
It's just, it's cool.
That's
I
a
love
ugly
how this
fella.
dude looks.
Mhm.
He reminds me obviously of Mulgera because it's like the similar thing, right? That's especially when Mulgera gets out of the sand and is like flying around and doing that ugly cry and then like going back into the sand. It kind of reminded me of when this boss is like does that little disappearing act where it goes through like a portal thing. It's like, oh my god, where is it? Where is it? Where's it? It's gonna pop up
Oh,
from
yeah,
below
yeah.
you. The other thing it reminds me of is Twin Mold from Majora's
Mm.
Mask.
I
For
thought
sure.
that too.
It's got the stuff underneath that you can shoot on that too, right? In the Majora's in the 3D version.
Yes, you shoot its eyeballs.
Yeah.
I think yeah. So I mean, what do you think about also after you beat it, you get the little vision or whatever of the old Rito champion with that cool helmet. It's pretty sweet.
So this kind of plays into the whole the song, the Legend of the Stormwind Arc or whatever that's been leading up. Tulin's been hearing this voice like as you're going up, and I was like, who the heck is that? And I like that. And we talked about this last time about like the imprisoning war and the implications of that and stuff, and like we get a little bit more of an explanation of this is what the imprisoning war was. It was these champions, and it was Rauru, and it was Zelda, and they had to seal the Demon King basically. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. I think it's really cool.
Yes. Yeah, we'll have to unpack more of the story stuff later for sure. But yeah, it gets you thinking.
There's a lot of eerie kind of elements too. When Tulin was like hearing the voice, I was like, that's gonna be the boss. Like there's a lot of like feel like things are
Wild.
not what it seems. Like I really was like, this is not gonna be good. It's someone like luring
Yeah.
him up there for bad intentions. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of aspects of this game that feels like perhaps not is all what it appears to be. So I don't know. I don't know. But I
See,
really liked that
kinda-
cutscene, although I do wish that you could see it again, because you can see the memories again, but you can't
Oh.
you can't like replay it on your Pura pad. I wish you could.
You should be able to, but I guess there's YouTube. I guess you can always tube it.
Close out of this video and
No,
go
it's
to the other one.
You can play it side by side.
We'll make a video.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll all act it out.
Yeah, we'll reenact it.
Yeah.
Who's wearing the helmet?
Corey's Tulin.
I could do that.
And we kind of already talked about it. You get Tulin's ability, so that's gonna be cool. Like, or it's been cool. I've been loving using it, and like Majora's Mask, it goes after you beat the mountain dungeon. It goes like back to the more hospitable. It's very nice. We get the classic Rito Village from Breath of the Wild theme, not the spooky one. Just feels good, and everyone's like, "Hey, we're homies. Come back here later." So I am excited to go back later and see what happens in all these areas.
One other thing I want to touch on before we leave the dungeon for good is that, like, in Breath of the Wild, the whole MO of going to the Divine Beasts was that, one, they were causing trouble in the areas they were in, and two, you're pretty much explicitly told, like, hey, these are kind of being corrupted right now. If you free these, they'll help you. Like, these will help you in your fight against Calamity Ganon in the end. And I was kind of wondering, going up to this, like, what am I doing here? Like, what's the point? Obviously, I'm compelled because bad stuff is happening to the Rito. You know, there's this whole cold snap is going on, and you're pointed to this area because of the quest or whatever. But I was like, what are we going for here? Like, what am I, Link, going for? What am I trying to obtain here? And I really like that the way that they kind of answered that is that it's not anything for Link at all. The
Well, it could
Rito,
be.
the old Rito champion, is talking to Tulin, and he's basically like, "You have a specific mission. You need to take my secret stone, which is clearly a tear, and it's your destiny to aid this swordsman because it's his destiny to take on the Demon King once he comes back." And it's kind of cool to see, like, that's pretty neat that, like, I did all this stuff, we did all this stuff, and it's like not even for you. It's for Tulin to like realize his full potential to help you. I thought it was kind of neat the way that they did that. That they're not like, "Oh, Link, you did it. You solved this problem. Now here's a nice thing for you." It's like, "Thanks, Tulin."
True. The story, yeah, it's a little bit more involved. It will help you because you're presumably going there because something with Zelda and he's gonna get more info. I guess we still gotta see how that plays out because at the end of the day too, when it came down to the final boss, it was in Breath of the Wild. It's like doing that stuff just got an extra blast off of his health bar or whatever, and it's a with that. I mean, it just depends on how you do it. I mean, in Ocarina of Time, you get those medallions so you can build a rainbow bridge, to enter a dungeon, or in A Link to the Past, you just to enter a dungeon.
You got to get the MacGuffins. You got to get the crystals to open the door.
So I'm not, I wouldn't come out and say like, oh, this is a rock solid, like, unbeatable formula. I mean, it is in some ways, but I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays off in this. I definitely think it could be more interesting than in Breath of the Wild. I mean, that is part of the charm of Breath of the Wild is that it's like you can just go to the end and.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see how it plays out in this game. It's too soon to fully say.
Yeah, I'm interested. Really, like it seems like there's several storylines happening at once, and you can they can unfold in various ways. You could skip a couple steps, like Corey. I mean, it does, is that I'm interested to see. I think that once I've finished it, I think that I will perhaps see this dungeon differently and I will see the story a little bit differently because there's still a lot of unknowns that I think will inform the story and the meaning.
So all right, Corey, get out your list. We got to rank the dungeon now. No. No. So
it would take a long time.
Yeah, we'll get there someday. I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna record something next week too. We're just gonna keep popping in and telling people our thoughts, but I don't know what the topic will be exactly, but we'll figure it out. Maybe another dungeon, maybe some of the towns or something. I don't know. There's just so much going on. I don't know. Some people might be done next week. So I don't know. Not me.
Here.
Not me.
Some of us might be done.
I don't know which corner McKenna's in, but
yeah, pointing that way.
I'm doing a lot of side stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, this became a podcast instead of I don't know. This is a great chat though. It's been fun to check in with all you guys.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about it because I've been really hush, not sure where people are at. And so it's kind of fun to talk to people trying to be very spoiler free, but just about this one thing. It feels like we're talking about some government secrets. So it's fun.
Yeah, thanks for popping in again while Nico is locked away in the Nook.
Yeah. Listen, you had to call in the reinforcements. I'm not on the front lines, but I'll call in if needed. Substitution.
You're a good hand. All right, let's get out of here and go. Well, I'm gonna put this together right now, but after that, I'm gonna play some Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes, me too. I know where I'm going next.
All right, everybody.
I'll chat.
See you later.